Faithfully Yours by Lou Tabakow. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Greg Marguerite. Faithfully Yours by Lou Tabakow. If it's too impossibly difficult to track down and recapture an escaped criminal, there's a worse thing one might do. July 18th, 1949 A.D. The fugitive lay face down in the fetid undergrowth, drawing in spasmodic lungfuls of air through cracked and swollen lips. Long before, his blue workshirt had been ripped to ribbons and his exposed chest showed a spiderwork of scratches where branches and brambles had sought to restrain him in his frenzied flight. Across his back from shoulder to shoulder ran a deeper cut, around which the caked blood attested to the needle-sharp viciousness of a thorn bush a mile to the north. With each tortured breath he winced as drops of sweat ran down, following the spiderwork network and burning like acid. Incessantly he rubbed his bruised torso with mud-caked palms to dislodge the gnats and mosquitoes that clung to him, gorging shamelessly. To the east he could see the lights of Fort Mudge, where the railroad cut through on its way to Jacksonville. He had planned to ride the freight into Jacksonville, but by now they were stopping every train and searching along every foot of the railroad right-of-way. In the distance he heard the eerie keen of a train whistle, and visualized the scene as it was flagged down and searched from engine to caboose. Directly before him loomed the foreboding northern boundary of the Okefenokee Swamp. Unconsciously he strained his ears, then shuddered at the night noises that issued from the noisome wilderness. A frenzied threshing, then a splash, then silence. What drama of life and death was being played out in that strange other world of perpetual shadows? In sudden panic he jerked erect and cupped his palm round his ear. Far off, muted by distance but still unmistakable, he heard the baying of bloodhounds. Then this was the end. A sob broke from his throat. What was he, an animal to be hunted down as a sport? Tears of self-pity welled to his eyes as he thought back to a party and a girl and laughter and cleanliness and the scent of magnolias like a heady wine. But that was so long ago, so long ago. And now... He looked down at his sweating, lacerated body, his blistered, calloused palms, the black, broken nails, the cheap work shoes with hemp laces, the shapeless gray cotton trousers, now wet to the knees. He pulled back his shoulders and resolutely faced west toward the river, but stopped short in horror as he heard the sudden cacophony of barks, yelps, and howls of a pack of bloodhounds that senses the beginning of the end. He turned in panic. They couldn't be over half a mile away. In panic of indecision he turned first east, then west, then facing due south. He hesitated a moment to take one last look at the clear, open skies, and with a muffled prayer plunged into the brooding depths of the Okefenokee. June 13th, 427th year, Galactic Era. The building still hummed and vibrated with the dying echoes of the alarm siren as the biophysicist hurried down the corridor and without breaking stride pushed open the door to the director's office. The director shuffled the papers before him and sighed heavily. His chair creaked protestingly as he shifted his bulk and looked up. "Well?" "He got clean away," said the biophysicist. "Any fix on the direction?" "None at all, sir, and he's got at least 2 hours start. That takes in a pretty big area of space." Well, there's just a bare chance. That experimental cruiser is the fastest thing in space, and it's equipped with the latest ethereal radar. If we get started right away, we just might—" "That's just it," interrupted the biophysicist. "That's the ship he got away in." The director jumped angrily to his feet. "How did that happen? How can I explain it to the board?" "I'm sorry, sir. He was just too—" "You're sorry?" He slumped back in his chair and drummed the desktop with his fingernails, worrying his lower lip with his teeth. He exhaled loudly and leaned forward. "Well, only one thing to do. You know the orders." The biophysicist squirmed uncomfortably. "Couldn't we send a squadron of ships out to search and—" "And what?" asked the director sarcastically. "You don't think I'd risk 1 billion credits worth of equipment on a wild goose chase like that, do you? We could use up a year's appropriation of fuel and manpower and still be unable to adequately search a sector 1/10 that size. If he just sat still, 1,000 ships couldn't find him in 1,000 years searching at finite speeds. Add to that the fact that the target is moving at ultra light speed, and the odds against locating him is multiplied by 1,000,000,000. I know, but he can't stay in space. He'll have to land somewhere sometime. True enough, but where and when? Couldn't we alert all the nearby planets? You know better than that. He could be halfway across the galaxy before an etherogram reached the nearest planet. Suppose we sent scout ships to the nearer planets and asked them to inform their neighbors in the same way. We'd soon have an expanding circle that he couldn't slip through. The director smiled wryly. Maybe. But who's going to pay for all this? By the time the circle was 1,000 light years in diameter, there would be 10,000 ships and 1,000,000 clerks working on recapturing one escaped prisoner. Another thing, I don't know offhand what he's been sentenced for, but I'll wager there are 10,000 planets on which his crime would not be a crime. Do you think we could ever extradite him from such a planet? And even if by some incredible stroke of fortune one of our agents happened to land on the right planet, in which city would he begin his search? Or suppose our quarry lands only on uninhabited planets? We can't very well alert the whole galaxy in the search for just one man. I know, but what? Interrupted the director. Any other suggestions? No. All right. He asked for it. You have the pattern, I presume. Feed it to Fido. Yes, sir, but, well, I just don't... Do you think I like it? Asked the director fiercely. In the silence that followed, they looked at each other guiltily. There's nothing else we can do, said the director. The orders are explicit. No one escapes from Hades. I know, replied the biophysicist. I'm not blaming you, only I wish someone else had my job. Well, said the director heavily, you might as well get started. He nodded his head in dismissal. As the biophysicist went out the door, the director looked down once more at the pile of papers before him. He pulled the top sheet closer and rubber-stamped across its face, "Case closed." Yes, he mused aloud, closed for us, but... He hesitated a moment, and then, sighing once more, signed his name in the space provided. August 6th, 430th year, Galactic Era. T. Ormond sat morosely at the space bar and alternately wiped his forehead with a soggy handkerchief and sipped at his frosted rainbow, careful not to disturb the varicolored layers of liquid in the tall, narrow glass. Every now and then he nervously ran his fingers through his straight black hair, which lay damply plastered to his head. His jacket was faded and worn, and above the left pocket was emblazoned the meteor insignia of the spaceman. A dark patch on his back showed where the perspiration had seeped through. He blinked and rubbed the corner of his eye as a drop of perspiration ran down and settled there. A casual look would have classified him as a very average-looking pilot, such as could be found at the bar of any spaceport, i.e., if space pilots can ever be classified as average. Spacemen are the last true adventurers in an age where the debilitating culture of a highly mechanized civilization has pushed to the very borders of the galaxy. While most men are fearful and indecisive outside their narrow specialties, the spacemen must at all times be ready to deal with the unexpected and the unusual. The expression, steady as a spaceman's nerves, had a very real origin. A closer look at T would have revealed the error of a quick classification. He gripped his drink too tightly, and his eyes darted restlessly from side to side as though searching, yet dreading to find the object of their search. His expressive face contorted in a nervous tic each time his eyes swept by the clock hanging behind the bar. He glanced dispiritedly out the window at the perpetually cloudy sky and idly watched a rivulet of water race down the dirty pane. He loosened his collar and futilely mopped at his neck with the soggy handkerchief, then irritably flung it to the floor. "Hey, Joe," he yelled to the bartender. "What's the matter with the air conditioning? I'm burning up." "Take it easy," soothed the bartender, consulting a thermometer on the wall behind him. "It's 85 in here. That's as low as the law allows. Can't have too much difference in the temperature or all my customers pass out when they go outside. Why don't you go into town? They keep it comfortable under the dome." "Don't this planet ever cool off?" asked T. The bartender chuckled. I see you don't know much about Thumis. Sometimes it drops to 90 at night, but not too often. You ought to be